You know, the bloody thing's going to fall apart as soon as I set it to some wood. So I'm going to solve that problem right now based on suggestions. Suggestion number one was to use a little JB weld to seal the cracks that are along the blade and handle that prevent it from being completely waterproof. I'm going to do that with a little leftover epoxy from a previous knife project that I have. This is general epoxy, good for metal, wood, plastics, etc. Going to try that out. The other suggestion was to drill holes along the handle here into the blade and put some brass rods through it. I have 3/16 inch brass rods from previous knife projects, so I'm going to try that out. And I'll give you a word of caution. Now you can see I've already drilled through this in two different spots. The word of caution is that anytime you drill into metal, you have the chance of binding. It binds, and what happens is the metal starts spinning. And what you essentially have is like a lawnmower blade. So it's very, very, very dangerous. It's going to take off anything it hits. So I'm not going to be having my blade in a vise because it's going to damage it. I'm going to have it down on this surface, and I'm going to be drilling into it. And my way of protecting me from the dangers of this blade spinning out and spinning towards me is that I'm going to be holding it down, my hands up out of the way, and it's in a position where when it spins it's going to hit a block of wood and a vise, and I'll be standing back here behind the vise with my hand up out of the way. Very important to protect your body in any way you can when dealing with any moving parts. Alright, so you can see I've got one hole close to center and one off center, and look at that, it's like a perfect fit. A little tight, but it does go through. Now I got to cut my rod and try to assemble this. So I cut and filed various sizes of brass rod, and I need to decide between these two because they're my choices at this point. Do I want the short one that's going to just fit in that hole and stick out just a little bit so I can press it flat, or do I want the longer one which is going to pass all the way through and stick out quite a bit? And in this case I think I'm going with the longer one. It's my choice, my knife. I just favor this one. I could do this one, make it neater looking, but not this time. So this is a recent addition to my workbench. I added a plank here on the side with a lip, and that gives me the ability to add a portable vise. Clamp it on, that way I can clamp my knife in there whichever way I want. Here's something I want to do. Okay, so that's another knife project finished, and I'm well pleased with it for what it is. By the way, I rewrapped this knife handle so that it does fit the sheath now. I can snap it closed. And you can see I've got my brass rods in. I pushed that epoxy down into the cracks. I filled the holes up, put the brass rods in, and I coated this thing with epoxy. If you know anything about epoxy, it's very, very strong. It's going to add strength to this knife. And it would drip, but I'd wipe it. It'd drip, I'd wipe it. And I hung it, let it dry for 24 hours, and then I went to this portion, my idea. Dropped half a pack of epoxy down inside, dropped a washer that was covered with epoxy, epoxied up another washer, dropped it down, pressed them down in there, and let it dry. Okay, and I'll show you this. Watch. Here's the depth we have. Here's the depth right down here to this line right here. So all this is now solid. It's all metal and epoxy. It's no longer spaced in any way. It's solid metal and epoxy. It's going to add a lot of strength. Yes, to a very inferior product. Alright, it's very cheap, very inferior, but now it is much better. I don't know how much abuse this can take now, but it's worthy as a survival tool in my opinion. And for $13 and a little time to play around with it, added a couple things to it. I got a compass came with it. I've got my fire steel and striker that now still fit inside. Alright, I got a little paracord and a knife. It's a survival tool, $13 and a little time. I already had the other material. It's something I could use if I need to. Now somebody left a comment on my other video about this knife saying they wouldn't pay 99 cents for it. Well, here's my challenge to those who criticize. To the one who wouldn't pay 99 cents, my challenge to you is show me what you can buy for 99 cents and show me what you're going to do to survive with it. To the others who criticize, show me what you can buy for $13 and show me what you can do to survive with that $13 item. And I will in return show you what I can do to survive with this in the way that I set it up. Okay? So there's the challenge. And sure, I appreciate all comments, and criticism is very valuable. I appreciate it. It helps me to have ideas. It helps me to rethink how I do things, so I do want criticism. But, hey, think about the type of criticism you're given. Have you thought out your opinions? Have you thought out the facts? Weigh them, balance them, and see where you stand. And I'll show you where I stand.